The massive alien ship loomed over the small human research station, its metallic hull blocking out the stars. Commander David Kim stood perfectly still, watching the vessel through the reinforced observation window. His hands were clasped behind his back, a gesture of calm that masked the tension building inside him. The research station orbited a distant moon, a quiet outpost on the edge of explored space. 12 scientists and 3 military personnel made up the entire crew. They had been studying rare mineral formations and cosmic radiation patterns, expecting nothing more exciting than data collection. Captain Elena Park approached David, her tablet displaying rapidly changing sensor readings. "They're not responding to standard communication protocols," she said quietly. The alien ship had arrived without warning, its approach silent and deliberate. Suddenly, a harsh electronic voice broke through the station's communication systems. The translation algorithm struggled for a moment before rendering the message clear. "Human settlement. Prepare for immediate resource extraction and personnel transfer." David raised an eyebrow. The demand was direct, almost casual in its complete disregard for human autonomy. He knew this was no simple misunderstanding. The station's junior technician, Mark Rodriguez, was frantically working his console. "Sir," he called out, "they're scanning our entire system. They're mapping our infrastructure, our resources, our equipment." Elena moved to another screen, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "They're not just scanning," she muttered. "They're cataloging everything as potential cargo." Outside, the alien ship began to extend mechanical appendages. They looked like massive metallic tentacles designed to pierce and extract. The crew watched in a mixture of fascination and horror as these mechanical arms stretched toward the research station. David knew they had seconds to make a decision. Surrender meant complete loss of their research, their equipment, and, potentially, their freedom. Resistance seemed impossible against such overwhelming technological superiority. But something in David's military training, something in the human spirit, rejected immediate submission. "Full defensive protocols," he said calmly. "Activate experimental quantum shield." Mark looked surprised. The quantum shield was an untested technology, developed in secret laboratories on Earth. No one was certain it would work against an actual alien attack. The station's systems hummed to life. Soft blue energy began to ripple around the research facility, creating a nearly invisible protective layer. The alien ship's mechanical arms made contact, and something unexpected happened. The arms didn't simply push through. They stopped, sparked, retreated. The alien communication channel erupted with what could only be described as surprise. The translation software converted complex alien sounds into a series of broken statements. Unexpected resistance. Technology. Inconsistent with previous scans. Recalculating approach. Elena looked at David. "They didn't expect us to have any defense." David allowed himself a small smile. Humans are always full of surprises. The alien ship began to rotate, its massive form moving in a way that suggested confusion. More communication signals burst forth, this time seeming more like internal discussions than direct threats. Mark continued monitoring the systems. "Sir, they're running multiple analysis sequences. They can't understand how our small station could generate such a defensive response." Outside, the stars continued their silent watch. The research station, a tiny speck of human determination, held its ground against the massive alien vessel. David knew this was just the beginning. This encounter would be reported back to Earth. The alien collective would learn that humans were not simple prey to be easily harvested. "Maintain defensive posture," he instructed Elena. "And continue recording everything." The station's sensors captured every moment, every signal, every subtle movement of the alien ship. Humanity's first true encounter with an extraterrestrial civilization was unfolding, and it was nothing like anyone had predicted. No one moved, no one spoke. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and then slowly, the alien ship began to withdraw. The news of the research station's encounter spread quickly through Earth's military and scientific communities. What had seemed Like a simple defensive action was now recognized as something more significant, humanity's first successful resistance against an advanced alien civilization. In a small control room in Colorado, a team of military strategists and scientists gathered around multiple screens. They analyzed every piece of data from the encounter, breaking down each moment of the interaction with the alien vessel. Michael Lee, a former aerospace engineer turned military technical advisor, stood at the center of the room. His fingers moved across holographic displays, reconstructing the quantum shield technology that had protected the research station. "It's not just a shield," he explained to the room full of experts. "It's an adaptive system that learns and responds in real time." The team watched as Michael demonstrated how the shield had not just blocked the alien attack, but had actually analyzed the incoming technology and created a counter-response. It was like watching a living, thinking defense mechanism. Across the planet, military research facilities began working overtime. The encounter had changed everything. What was once theoretical research became an urgent priority. Every department was now focused on developing technologies that could protect humanity from potential alien threats. In orbital research stations, engineers worked on modifying existing communication satellites. Mining drones were being repurposed. With advanced artificial intelligence, even agricultural research robots were being equipped with defensive capabilities. Sarah Kim, a young AI specialist, was developing something extraordinary. Her team was creating drone swarms that could think and act as a collective intelligence. Each drone would communicate and coordinate with others, creating a network that could adapt and respond faster than any single unit. "We're turning our peaceful technologies into defensive systems," she explained to her team. "Our strength has always been adaptability." Back on the research station that had first encountered the aliens, the crew continued their work with renewed purpose. They weren't just scientists anymore. They were humanity's first line of defense. Commander David Kim reviewed the station's logs repeatedly. He noticed patterns in the alien communication that others had missed. Their language, their approach, their technology. Everything suggested a civilization that expected immediate compliance. "They're not used to resistance," he told Captain Elena Park during a late-night strategy meeting. "They see resources, not living beings." The military began preparing for potential scenarios. Training programs were redesigned. Simulation exercises became more intense and realistic. Every soldier, every technician, every researcher was now part of a potential defense strategy. Satellite networks were reconfigured. Communication systems were made more robust. Underground research facilities were expanded and fortified. Humanity was preparing not out of fear, but out of a deep sense of determination. In universities and research centers, young scientists and engineers volunteered for special programs. The encounter had sparked a global interest in space defense and alien technology. Applications for aerospace and defense programs tripled overnight. Michael Lee's quantum shield technology became a blueprint for future defensive systems. Engineers worked to miniaturize the technology, imagining ways it could protect individual vehicles, buildings, and eventually entire cities. The alien collective, meanwhile, was processing the unexpected resistance. Their internal communications revealed confusion and a growing sense of concern. A species they had categorized as primitive had demonstrated technological capabilities that defied their understanding. Weeks turned into months. The research station continued its work, now with enhanced defensive capabilities. Every system was monitored. Every piece of equipment was a potential weapon. Humanity was no longer just exploring space. They were preparing to defend it. The global mood had shifted. Where there might have been fear, there was now a sense of collective purpose. Every country, every research institution, every individual seemed united by a single thought: we will not be easily conquered. Commander. David Kim looked out at the stars from the research station's window. The universe suddenly seemed both more dangerous and more exciting than ever before. The resistance had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The world changed faster than anyone could have predicted. Research laboratories that once worked on separate projects now collaborated with unprecedented speed and intensity. The alien encounter had transformed human technology overnight. Lisa Wong sat in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays and complex computing systems. Her team had discovered something remarkable, an adaptive AI algorithm that could learn and predict enemy strategies within hours of first contact. "We're not just creating defense systems," she told her colleagues. "We're building living, thinking technologies that can outmaneuver any threat." Across the globe, similar breakthroughs were happening. Agricultural drones originally designed to plant crops were being modified into intelligent combat units. Mining robots were retrofitted with advanced sensor systems and defensive capabilities. Military research centers worked around the clock. What used to take years of development now happened in weeks. The pressure of potential alien invasion had become the ultimate motivator for human innovation. In orbital research stations, engineers were creating something unprecedented. Swarm, intelligent systems that could think and act as a collective mind. Each small drone became part of a larger, more intelligent network. They could communicate, adapt, and respond faster than any traditional military unit. The quantum shield technology developed by Michael Lee became the foundation for new defensive systems. It wasn't just a barrier, it was a living, learning, protection mechanism that could analyze and counter threats in real time. Satellite networks were transformed. Communication systems became more robust and harder to interrupt. Underground research facilities expanded, creating hidden networks of technological development that could survive any potential attack. Young scientists and engineers worked with a passion never seen before. University programs focused on space. Defense and alien technology saw applications skyrocket. The entire planet seemed united by a single goal: to be prepared. The alien collective continued to monitor human activities, but they were growing increasingly confused. The speed of human technological adaptation defied their previous assessments. What they had considered a primitive species was rapidly becoming something entirely unexpected. In military training centers, simulation exercises became increasingly complex. Soldiers trained with new technologies that could adapt and learn. Traditional warfare strategies were replaced by fluid, dynamic approaches that emphasized quick thinking and technological innovation. Lisa Wong's AI systems became particularly impressive. They could analyze alien communication patterns, predict potential attack strategies, and develop counter-responses in minutes. What would have taken months of human analysis now happened almost instantaneously. Manufacturing centers around the world were retooled. Factories that once produced consumer goods now focused on creating advanced defensive technologies. Every piece of equipment was designed with potential space conflict in mind. Space exploration took on a new meaning. Research stations became forward observation points. Each mission was now a potential first line of defense against alien threats. The global mood had changed. Fear had been replaced by determination. Humanity was no longer just hoping to survive. They were preparing to thrive in a potentially hostile universe. Commander David Kim reviewed the latest technological reports. The transformation was remarkable. Humanity had taken its first real steps towards becoming a space-capable civilization ready to defend itself. Satellite networks expanded. Communication systems became more complex and harder to disrupt. Every technological advancement was now viewed through the lens of potential space defense. The alien collective's monitoring systems continued to track human developments. But with each passing day, their confidence began to waver. The species they had initially planned to harvest was becoming something entirely unexpected. In research laboratories, universities, and military training centers, a new generation of scientists and engineers worked with unprecedented passion. They were no longer just developing technology. They were shaping humanity's future in the stars. Lisa Wong looked at her team's latest AI simulation. The adaptive system had just predicted and countered a complex attack scenario that would have defeated traditional military strategies. "We're not just defending," she said quietly. We're evolving. The technological revolution had begun, and humanity was leading the way. The Battle of Proxima Centauri would be remembered as the moment everything changed. A small human fleet, led by Commander Robert Park, faced an overwhelming alien armada that outnumbered them 10-1. The alien collective believed this would be a simple extermination. Their massive ships carried weapons that had conquered hundreds of civilizations. Humanity was just another target. They were wrong. Robert Park stood on the bridge of the lead spacecraft, his hands steady on the command console. Around him, a crew of carefully selected specialists worked with machine-like precision. Each had been trained in multiple disciplines. Each understood that this battle was more than just a military engagement. This was about humanity's survival. The quantum communication systems hummed with an adaptive intelligence developed by Lisa, Wong's research team. Every second, the human ships were learning, adapting, predicting the alien fleet's movements before they happened. "Incoming primary attack vector," announced the tactical officer. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. The Chatti alien ships moved with what they believed was overwhelming force, massive energy weapons charged, ready to obliterate the human fleet in a single devastating strike. But the human ships were not where the aliens expected them to be. Using a combination of quantum entanglement communication and distributed AI tactics, Commander Park's fleet performed maneuvers that defied traditional space combat logic. They didn't just dodge. They anticipated. They redirected. They counterattacked. Each human ship was more than a weapon. It was a thinking, adaptive system that could recalculate strategies in milliseconds. The swarm intelligence developed by Earth's engineers transformed the small fleet into a single, intelligent organism. The alien ships began to fall, not through brute force but through intelligent, unexpected tactics. Smaller drones, originally designed for mining and agricultural purposes, now swarmed between the massive alien vessels. They weren't just attacking. They were disrupting communication systems, creating chaos in the alien fleet's command structure. Robert watched the holographic displays. The battle wasn't just being fought with weapons, but with intelligence. Each movement, each attack was a complex mathematical equation solved in real time. "They never expected us to fight like this," he remarked quietly to his second-in-command. The alien fleet's communication channels erupted in what could only be described as confusion. Their rigid hierarchical systems couldn't comprehend the fluid, adaptive approach of the human defense. Hours passed. What should have been a quick extermination became a complete defeat for the alien collective. Their most advanced warships were systematically disabled, not through overwhelming firepower, but through intelligent disruption. When the battle ended, only the human fleet remained. Not a single human ship had been lost. Back on Earth, research facilities erupted in celebration. This was more than a military victory. This was proof that humanity could not just survive, but thrive in a universe filled with potential threats. The alien collective's communication networks went silent. Their systems were trying to process what had just happened. A species they had considered primitive had just defeated their most advanced battle fleet. Commander Park reviewed the battle logs. Every moment had been recorded, every tactical decision analyzed. This would become a training manual for future space engagements. The quantum communication systems continued to hum. They were already learning, already preparing for the next potential conflict. Humanity had done more than survive. They had transformed the very concept of space warfare. The Battle of Proxima Centauri was over. But humanity's real journey was just beginning. The stars watched silently, waiting to see what would happen next. The Zorn Collective's leadership sat in stunned silence. Their massive chamber, once a symbol of galactic dominance, now felt like a tomb of broken dreams. Centuries of unchallenged control had been shattered by a species they had considered insignificant. Ambassador Karen Kim stood before the Galactic Council, her presence both diplomatic and commanding. Behind her, holographic displays showed the systematic breakdown of the collective's power structure. Each image told a story of liberation, of species long oppressed finding their voice. Humanity offers an alternative. she said simply. The message was clear. This wasn't about conquest. This was about transformation. Across hundreds of occupied planets, species that had been controlled by the Zorn Collective began to rise. Human communication networks, designed with unprecedented adaptability, reached out to these worlds. They shared technologies, offered support, provided a blueprint for resistance. Mining colonies that had been stripped of resources for generations suddenly found themselves with new communication systems. Agricultural worlds received advanced farming technologies. Scientific outposts were given access to research that had been deliberately hidden from them. Commander David Kim oversaw the diplomatic efforts from Earth's Central Command. The strategy was subtle but powerful. Humanity wasn't conquering, they were enabling. The Zorn leadership watched in disbelief as their carefully constructed empire began to crumble. Their communication networks, once a tool of control, now became channels of rebellion. Species they had considered too primitive to resist were sharing information, building alliances. On a small research station, Lisa Wong's adaptive AI systems continued to develop new communication protocols. Each interaction, each piece of shared technology was another step towards a more connected galaxy. The transformation wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. Humanity offered something the Zorn Collective had never understood: cooperation instead of control, shared progress instead of hierarchical oppression, the ability to grow, to adapt, to choose. Rebel groups on occupied planets began receiving support, not through direct military intervention, but through communication, technology, and strategic guidance. Humans had learned that true liberation came from empowerment, not conquest. The Zorn's communication channels became increasingly desperate. Their reports showed a complete breakdown of their traditional power structures. Species they had controlled for generations were now standing up, demanding freedom. Ambassador Karen Kim presented a simple proposal to the remaining Zorn leadership. It wasn't a demand of surrender, but an offer of cooperation, a chance to be part of something new. Some Zorn leaders resisted. Others saw the writing on the wall. The final transmission from the Zorn High Council was a begrudging admission. Humans were never meant to be warriors. We made a critical error. Across the galaxy, species that had been isolated began to connect. The communication networks developed by human researchers became bridges between worlds. Scientific knowledge, cultural exchanges, technological innovations began to flow freely. Commander Robert Park, who had led the decisive battle, now worked on diplomatic strategies. The military approach had opened the door. Now, diplomacy would build the future. Earth became more than a planet. It became a beacon of possibility. The transformation wasn't quick, it wasn't simple, but it was profound. Years of oppression began to heal. Species that had been enemies learned to communicate. Technologies that had been hoarded became shared. Resources. The rigid structure of the old galactic order collapsed, replaced by something more fluid, more alive. Lisa Wong's research teams continued to develop communication technologies that connected rather than controlled. Each breakthrough was another step towards a more open, more collaborative galactic society. The Zorn Collective's final records would show a simple, devastating truth. They had underestimated humanity's potential for growth, for adaptation, for compassion. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to reimagine itself. As the stars continued their silent watch, a new chapter in galactic history began. Not with the sound of weapons, but with the quiet hum of communication, of understanding, of shared possibility.